Good morning, afternoon, or evening, NBA fantasy and supercoach players, and welcome to episode 3 of the NBA Such Is Fantasy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Defries, and we've got a bit to get through today. We'll start off with our weekly risk assessment. I've spoken about how important this is, particularly when it comes to NBA Supercoach. There's just players and teams that you need to avoid to stop any bleeding that may happen through the week through restings or any other shenanigans. Trade rumours, we'll talk about teams and players that are looking to either trade or be traded. And I think that'll dictate some of the decisions we make from an NBA Supercoach perspective, and potentially fantasy. It's going to be really important to get ahead of that. If you're in 10 or 12 team leagues in your NBA fantasy draft and you're on the bubble of playoffs, you need to start making some bold decisions, and it may be that you get rid of top 15, top 20 player that you think may be rested, shut down, or traded to a poor team or a good team. There's a lot to talk about there. We'll look at the best performers of the week so far. Will there be a mea culpa from myself on my Jalen Johnson and Bam take? Unlikely. I don't think we're there yet, but it is trending that way, unfortunately. Injury updates, who you should be grabbing off the waiver wire, and also who we should be looking to avoid from an NBA Supercoach perspective next week. And then finally, we'll look at buy or fade for Supercoach Week 14. Let's get into it. We'll start with our weekly risk assessment. So in terms of players to avoid this week, we've had a few injuries and a few players missing games here and there. Cade Cunningham plays 4 games next week. I will be avoiding. That's fairly straightforward. He's dealing with a wrist injury, and if you saw the game he did play a couple of nights ago, you'll notice that he had a warming guard on his wrist during the breaks in play. Never a good sign. We've also had J-Dub at OKC dealing with a similar issue. He had surgery, obviously, in the off-season. I don't think we're heading there with Cade, but they are monitoring it closely, and he missed his last match. So something to monitor. If you're playing fantasy, maybe you put him on the trade block and see what interest there is there for him. If there's a little niggle there, I'm sure it'll come good. They know what they're doing, these medical teams, but just something to monitor. We had Denny Advia leave the game once again with his sore back. He came back earlier than I thought he would, and he's left the game early today. Coach Splitter in his press conference expects him to be available for next week. I don't know. I think Portland will be erring on the side of caution with that one. So for NBA super coaches, be very careful about bringing him in for his 4-game week next week. If we go across the league, let's just quickly go through it. Atlanta Hawks, relevant players, Kristaps Porzingis. Is this guy ever going to play basketball? If it's not illness, it's his Achilles. It's just one injury after another. I think he'll be part of a trade package potentially for Atlanta. They should be good this year. That roster was built to be at the very least, Eastern Conference Finals team. So they need to make some moves. I don't think they stay pat at the trade deadline. I think we'll see them try and get off the Porzingis contract and see if they can add something around the peripherals to make them better. Let's see. But one to monitor there. Boston Celtics. I think they're probably looking for a big. I'm not sure that they're going to get a lot of value out of Luka Garza in a 7-game playoff series. Jason Tatum will be back. Just check your waiver wires. He shouldn't be on it anymore given how well Boston are playing and the appetite that Jason Tatum has to come back. I'd be very, 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 very surprised if Jason Tatum's still on your waiver wires. But if he is, just double check and make sure. That'll be a great pickup from February onwards. So make sure you get him in your injured reserve ASAP. Brooklyn, I'd be avoiding all players from Brooklyn. So if we look at the risk assessment, we look at trades. MPJ will probably be part of a trade package at this trade deadline. There's a few teams that could do with his services, and I think Brooklyn are looking to get back some youth and some picks for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved on. I'd just avoid Brooklyn plays for now. Let's see where MPJ ends up and then what we can do with him moving forward. the Chicago Bulls are an avoid just generally. Now, there's going to be a lot of love for Chicago players next week. Be aware their rescheduled game against Miami has been scheduled for game week 14. So they've got 5 games. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, sorry, 5 games. 5 games. Miami now have 4 games. They had 3 scheduled. Now they've got 4. Chicago had 4 scheduled. Now they've got 5. So there's going to be some value on the waiver wire potentially for some of their fringe players if you need to stream those guys in. But for me, really limited value, maybe a Kobe White. But on Josh Giddey for NBA Supercoaches, it's just an avoid for me. He's inconsistent. He's managing a hamstring injury. He's on a minutes restriction. In what world is he playing all 5 of those games? So a lot of excitement, particularly from Aussies, about getting him into their team this week on a 5-game week. He's not going to play 5 games and he's not going to play 32, 33 minutes. I'd imagine he's restricted to something around the 22, 24-minute mark. So definitely an avoid on Josh Giddey. Cleveland, when is Max Strus going to come back? We don't know. There's no timeline there yet. Darius Garland, they said 10 days on January 18. So I expect him back at the back end of the week. I think until then, we've now got should be more production from Donovan Mitchell, but he's been inefficient in his last couple of games. The Mavericks, we've got Anthony Davis being reassessed in 4 or 5 weeks. Derek Lively is done. And Kyrie Irving due back. Another one, you need to check the waiver wire, guys. Make sure Kyrie's not there because I think from reporting out of Dallas, the Dallas Mavericks owner, Dumont, wants to see, before he makes a decision on whether he's trading AD, what AD and Irving look like together on the court. Now, AD might get traded in the next 2 weeks. I think there's going to be some teams desperate enough to go after AD. They shouldn't, but they will. So if Dallas are happy with what assets they're getting back, maybe he moves. So what would the appetite be to risk Kyrie Irving at the back end of this season? Might not be there, but if he's on that waiver wire, pick him up ASAP. The Denver Nuggets, big watch on Nikola Jokic over the next week. This is the time frame they gave right about now for his reassessment. Now, reassessment, often we see it different from teams. A reassessment can mean let's have a look, let's see if he's moving well and build him up to 5-on-5 scrimmage and then game time. That could be another 2 weeks away, or he's ready to go. In the background, he's been already doing that. We just haven't had it reported, and he's back in. He's going to be on a minutes restriction when he comes back. So from a super coach perspective, I say perspective a lot. I'm going to have to change that word, but I think you can afford to wait. So if Jokic is named in that first game of the week, I'm not going to be clamoring to bring him in, particularly at that price tag. I think the limits restriction, the fact that he's going to have a price drop, I'd be holding on Jokic for 1 or 2 weeks, absolute maximum. That'll be my strategy rolling in. The Detroit Pistons, I've spoken about Cade Cunningham. I think there is massive risk in having him in your team in NBA Supercoach next week. He's an absolute avoid. Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga, I thought he was a great ad. I thought, some people believe in trade showcasing, some don't. I believe teams would do that, and I believe Golden State were planning to do that with Jonathan Kuminga. Unfortunately got injured today. So he was getting minutes. He was back in the rotation. Now they've listed him day to day, but if you saw him prop up on that ankle, going for that drive and bucket, he stole that little girl's seat. If you haven't seen the footage yet, just take a look. It's pretty funny. He asked her to get up so he could have a seat and check out the damage he'd done. But unfortunately, JK is absolutely a drop in NBA fantasy, and he was never a buy in Supercoach. Jimmy Butler done for the season, devastating for the Warriors. So they're an avoid. What they're going to do and try and package together at the trade deadline, I don't think there's any point. There's no way they can get better now. devastating from an NBA fan perspective. I mean, Steph put up 38 points today. I think he shot 8 of 15 from 3. Just a real shame that the Warriors won't be part of the title pitch, or at least the playoffs at the back end of the year now. Houston Rockets, Steven Adams, they've diagnosed him with a grade 3 ankle sprain. Now, that probably means more time for Clint Capella. I think he's an ad. So particularly if you're in a 12 or a 14-team league, make sure you just check that he's not on the waiver wire. He's going to get minutes. Amen Thompson is doing the thing at the moment for super coaches and fantasy players. So well done if you've got him in your team. I like him as a trade package asset in NBA fantasy. So you could put him together with one or two other players to try and nab a top 12 player. Indiana Pacers, tanking, irrelevant, stay away. Clippers, talking about doing the thing, the Clippers are back. They looked great again today with Kawhi in the lineup. Now, I'm staying away from Kawhi in Supercoach just because you don't know when they're going to rest him with his knee concerns, his ankle concerns. So it's not worth the risk for me, but he is playing fantastic basketball. He should be an all-star. The reality is that when he's been in the lineup for the Clippers have been and looked unbelievable. So the Clippers have been fantastic across their last 20 games. They're going to make the play-in. They're a sneaky shot at getting the 6th seed if this continues, this winning rate that they're on. But they're going to be in the play-in, and I think they probably make the 8 in the playoffs. So no need to avoid too many of their players. I think Zubac is a definite buy low right now. So I'd just be testing the temperature of Zubac owners in NBA fantasy just to see if there's an appetite to sell, particularly if that player, if that team's on the bubble of playoff contention. Now's the time to take a look at the halfway point of the season. I've got James Harden in Supercoach. He was my pod play this week. I teased I had a pod play that I wasn't going to reveal because I'm all in on Supercoach Cup. That is a real humdinger of a battle I've got at the moment in Supercoach Cup. And it's mainly because Donovan Mitchell and James Harden haven't performed like I hoped they would. Jimmy looked really good in game 1. I think he scored 40 Supercoach points for me, but he's then backed that up with a 16 and a 14. So not great. I will be avoiding Clippers players just generally moving forward, but I do think Zubac is a buy low. The Lakers, Austin Reeves can't come back soon enough from an NBA point of view, but geez, they can't play D. They don't have athletic wings. They need those two-way players desperately. I think they try and make a move at the deadline, but they're going to have a whole lot of cap space open up when LeBron moves on at the end of the year, which I think he will. I mean, maybe he takes a pay cut to stay with the Lakers, but I think he's probably heading home to Cleveland. That makes the most sense. And if you want to be in the Giannis sweepstakes, I think you've probably got to stay pat if you're the Lakers. Outside of Luka, LeBron's obviously been playing well lately, but he's a chance of arrest, even though he hasn't had one for a couple of weeks now. He's a chance of arrest at any time, but he's putting up some incredible numbers across the last 3 or 4 weeks. Luka Doncic, the super coach, he's got a 4-game week next week. He's in, done. If he's not in your team now, you just make sure you bring him in next week. The Memphis Grizzlies, stay away. We don't know what's going to happen with Ja Morant. He's played some 2 or 3 really good matches across the last couple of weeks. So there's going to be a team that's desperate enough to go after him, Milwaukee. And yeah, we're going to see some movement there, but stay away from Grizzly players. Jaren Jackson is the most frustrating player to watch. He's looked really good the last 3 weeks, but I guarantee you as soon as you own him in Supercoach, he'll drop an absolute shocker. The guy just cannot stay out of foul trouble. Miami Heat, all right. Tyler Hero, stay away. The guy's just getting injured. He's potentially getting traded. I think stay pat on Tyler Hero. Bam Adebayo, Had an absolute shocker in the first game of the week, and he's been great since. I can't fault it. Well done, Bam. Uh, You've been consistently inconsistent all season, but you've put together back-to-back games. You've got one more back-to-back. There is a back-to-back coming up from Miami. I don't think he plays the back-to-back. There you go. That's my prediction. But if he does, let's see if we get that consistency before we go the early crow there. The Milwaukee Bucks, stay away. Giannis, he's been great for us this week, but things are brewing. If you are listening to Giannis's commentary after each game, it is compelling viewing. I don't know what he's talking about half the time. I mean, in the last match, he was talking about players not playing selfishly and taking shots they wouldn't normally take, and maybe they feel like it's their time to do more and it's their turn. Giannis's usage and shots per game were exactly where they've been for his career. So I'm not sure what Giannis was feeling, but it sounds like a bit of media manipulation and talking through the media to potentially ask for a trade without asking for a trade. Let's see what happens there. Big watch, but I'm staying away from Milwaukee Bucks assets. Minnesota, let's talk about this quickly. We're going to get to buys, but Anthony Edwards, there's a little niggle going on there, so just something to monitor. Could be a buy low. He's put up a couple of poor games by his standards. Pelicans, stay away or not to stay away. They need to win. They don't own their pick. They've got the worst record in the league. I think they've got to play their players. I don't think they've got a choice unless they're resigned to just losing that pick and resting their players. I don't think that makes sense. So I think we've probably got 2 or 3 more weeks of them going all out trying to win games, and then they'll probably reassess. They've said that all of their players are off limits except for Yves Missi and Jose Alvarado. Not sure what the market is for those two, but they should absolutely be making Trey Murphy and Zion Williamson available for trades. Even Derek Queen, I know they traded up for him, but geez, the Pelicans have got some work to do, and with the uncertainty around trades, I'd just be avoiding them over the next week or so. Oklahoma City Thunder, a lot of injuries, but hey, I think the front runner for the MVP is very clear. Shea has been phenomenal. There's an interesting stat that's come out when Jay Williams misses, J-Dub misses games versus what OKC's record is when he does versus what it is when he doesn't. They're 33-1 when J-Dub misses, and when he plays, it's something like 72-23. They're not exact numbers, but that's pretty close. So an interesting stat there. But Shea is the man, right? He takes that extra responsibility, produces more production, doesn't look to get other guys going, just dictates terms straight from the first whistle. So really great to own at the moment and doing really well. The Magic, Franz Wagner, just have a look at the owners of Franz Wagner in NBA Fantasy and just see if there's an appetite to sell, see how they feel about him. I think he'll come good really soon. Orlando are a sleeper. They're nowhere near full strength. They've played nowhere near their potential, and I think at some point that it will all click. It has to, surely. The Portland Trailblazers, as I said, Danny Advia left the game with a back concern. I'd be very careful there about that. Shaedon Sharpe is balling right now, so just keep an eye on him and see if there's any interest there. Sacramento Kings, stay away. San Antonio Spurs, not much to talk about there outside of the usual suspects. No real injury concerns. Luke Cornett missed a game today, but he'll be back his day today. And Devin Vassell is potentially back in a week or so. The Raptors, Jakob Poeltl, I'm an owner in NBA Fantasy. I drafted him far too early in the draft. That was a mistake of mine. I'm just stuck with him. He's got no trade value. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Colin Murray Boyles was injured. He's got a thumb injury. He's questionable again. So the ad there is Milasili. Can't pronounce his name exactly. That's a shocker from me, but I added him for a really good score last week, and he should continue to produce. Utah Jazz, stay away. Already playing games. Maybe Lauri Markkanen's actually sick. Maybe. Is he sick? A lot of illnesses getting around in the NBA. I guess he could be sick. Washington Wizards, stay away unless, Alex Sarr, if you own, I'd be looking to sell high on. I just think we're going to see some shenanigans there really soon. There's going to be a shutdown. We couldn't wait, could we, to see Trey play and exhibit his passing game with these young players at Washington and get them open looks that they've just never had before. Trey has not seen the court since being traded to Washington, and that's the right play from them. It's negligent for them to be winning basketball games right now. So Trey remains on ice. He'll probably debut after the All-Star break. Throw him out there for a couple of games and just make sure they don't win. Make sure they keep their draft pick. So that's around the grounds in terms of injuries and our risk assessment. Next, let's move on really quickly to the top performers of the week so far. If we have a look from both a fantasy and Supercoach perspective, I'll keep it together. We've got Tyrese Maxey's played 3 games. He's absolutely just has been a revelation this season. He has graduated into a star category. He should be a top 10 draft pick next year for NBA fantasy. And from Supercoach, he's a must-own on a 4-game week. Yusuf Nurkic, if we could trust Utah, he'd be in my team, but we can't. But he's just on an absolute tear at the moment. 2 triple-doubles. He's doing his best Joker impersonation. It looks fantastic. Luka Doncic is doing Luka Doncic things. His offense is great. I actually watched a bit of the Lakers game today, and his D was actually much improved. So it'd be great if we could see that on a more regular basis. Keontae George is burning me from a Supercoach. Oh my God, he's good. He's too good. I don't know why I faded him. He's not a fade, but he is a fade. 1 game to go this week for Utah. Does he play it? They put a questionable tag on him for this game. He played, but they said it was his elbow. They're playing silly buggers. They shouldn't be winning games, and Keontae George is going to help them win too many games. So let's hope he gets a rest very soon. Joel Embiid, is he back? Just check the temperature there. Check the temperature, see if anyone wants to sell. He looked pretty good today. There's clearly something going on with one of his knees. He can't get up off the ground. He's not really jumping, but something's brewing with Joel. Jalen Johnson he looked great this week. What can I say? CJ McCollum, I heard a rumor today, I don't know how true it is, that potentially the Hawks would look to waive him or buy him out. I don't know how that makes sense, but maybe. He came in there and took far too many shots. He tried to take the last shot of the game. We spoke about that already, but yeah. JJ's back. Bam, spoken about Bam already. He plays 5 games this week. He plays 4 next week. Well done if you picked him up and he plays in the next 2 games. And if he doesn't, then I warned you. And we'll never speak on it again. They're the best performers of the week. The disappointing performers so far, without a doubt, is Anthony Edwards and Donovan Mitchell. Really disappointing production. They have a couple games left to fix that. So let's hope that they do for owners. That takes care of the performers of the week. Let's take a really, really quick look at trade rumors. So Giannis, I think it was a long shot until his recent comments. He could potentially go. So I think that's something we need to watch. Is something brewing in LA with LeBron? I'd be shocked. If LeBron wants to go, then I think LA do it. But if LeBron wants to stay in LA, I don't think they risk the backlash. Now, if I'm in that front office, I'm absolutely looking. Full disclosure, I'm a Lakers fan. I'm a LeBron stan. I'm just a basketball fan. I don't have skin in the game in hating another player for whatever reason. If you can't objectively look at LeBron James and understand his greatness, that's a you problem. Now, for the future of the franchise, I think LeBron, I think the time's done. And if he wants to leave, great. Let's work out a package that we can get in return that makes us better around Luka. If he doesn't, let's just wait. Let's just wait till the end of the season. No harm in that. The other big trade piece is obviously Ja Morant. I don't think that really affects us from a fantasy or a super coach perspective, but be interesting to see. Interesting to see if there's any interest there. I think LaMelo Ball. I think there'll be a few nibbles at. I think there'll be a few nibbles at LaMelo. There's certainly. The jury's been out on him for a little while, but I think in terms of his potential and where the ceiling is for LaMelo, I wouldn't be giving up on him yet, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a trade package put together for him. The big one that I think needs to be looked at is Karl Anthony Towns. Now, I sound like a hater when I talk about him, but I just look at this might be an Aussie term, but where's the mongrel, right? I think there's plenty of fake mongrel there and fake hustle, right? I think we saw it in the playoffs last year, beating his chest, screaming, primal screaming. But if you've looked at him play this season, the flaying of arms, I think he's hit about 5 plays in the nuts in the last 3 weeks. No joke. And the aggressiveness that he tries to display just looks fake to me. Now, I do sound like a hater, but maybe I just haven't forgiven him for bringing him in for 1 week of Supercoach and he took 4 shots in a game. Now, I'm sorry. At his level, at his standard and his importance to that team, he can't be taking that many shots, right? He can't be taking that few shots. That's an effort. That is an effort problem, not a team chemistry problem, not a game plan problem, not a coaching problem, that's a him problem. Get yourself involved, take the shots. That's an aggression problem. So if I'm the Knicks and they haven't been great lately, I think they're 3-9 in their last 12. They've got to be looking at this is a win now scenario from them. I think their owner Dolan said that it's win or bust. So if that's the goal, they have to look at moving Towns. So I'd be staying away from New York Knicks assets for now. The other big trade rumors, I guess, there's going to be some peripheral potential trades around the outskirts. Wouldn't be surprised. Look, Jarrett Jackson Jr. could absolutely be traded from Memphis, but I don't think they're necessarily looking to do that. The Sacramento Kings might make some moves. They might look to get off DeRozan, but again, I'm not sure whether there's an appetite for DeRozan. I think they're the big ones. I've probably missed a couple, but from a fantasy and an NBA perspective, they're the ones I'd be looking at carefully. The Pelicans may or may not do something. They've said certain players aren't available, but I think they have to be. There's going to be some Trey Murphy nibbles happening in the background. I assure you of that. All right. Finally, let's move on to buy or fade for Supercoach Week 14. So, teams that have 4 games this week, they're the only players I'm going to be talking about. And then teams and players that have 3 games that you could potentially sell. So this week's a really, really easy one in terms of who you should be targeting. So look, Maxey stays in your team. Doncic, if he was in your team, he stays in your team. If he wasn't, you buy. He's on a 4-game week. Jalen Johnson is on a 4-game week. I think he has to come in. Cade Cunningham's on a 4-game week. I don't think he has to come in. Now, I've spoken about that already, but I just think that's a risk. Nikola Jokic, I don't think he has to come in. I'm not even sure he plays every game, but monitor it. We are monitoring for the Joker's return. Danny Avdia, 4 games this week, avoid. This back injury is a concern. Risk mitigation, no. Austin Reeves is due back soon. I don't think it'll be wise to bring him in. I wouldn't bring him in anyway, but the fact that he'll be on a limits restriction, it's a no. The Houston Rockets have back-to-back 4-game weeks, and if you look at their schedule for the rest of the season, there's a lot of 4-game weeks in there. So are we taking Durant, Şengün, or Thompson? I don't know. I think the most upside is Şengün. He can produce 50 points. Durant hasn't done that yet. He's been unbelievable. All-star level, production, phenomenal. But he kind of sits between 28 and 35 points, whereas Şengün can drop a 50-point super coach night at any time. So something for us to monitor. Anthony Edwards is an avoid for me next week. I just think he looks a little gimpy. I think there's some ankle concerns there. He's been missing games here and there for injury maintenance. So that's a no. Jamal Murray, let's see if he finishes. If he plays the back-to-back tomorrow and you don't own Jamal, you're 100% bringing him in. I own, so I'll obviously keep for the 4-game week, but let's hope he plays the back-to-back tomorrow. Josh Giddey's an avoid. Minutes restriction. He's going to get brought in. I know you guys are going to do it. He's on a 5-game week. I don't see him producing with the minutes, and there is just zero chance he plays all 5 of those games. Jaylen Brown, he gives you 8 or he gives you 37. I can't live my life like that. So he's an avoid for me, but I understand the trading. Karl Anthony Towns, never again. Get out of here. Jalen Duren, I just don't like when Cade is playing. Will Cade play? Won't he play? You could take the punt that Cade's not going to play and go for that. Evan Mobley's looked so much better. Fantasy players, just check in on owners, see if they're happy, particularly those players on the bubble, and offer them something that's worthwhile. Jalen Brunson is a no. We're staying away from New York Knicks players. Paolo Banchero, too inconsistent. Just too inconsistent. We're staying away from Sacramento, and we are checking in on Franz Wagner. I think that'll probably do it for us today. That's 32 minutes on the button. We're at a critical part of the season, so just make sure you're checking in. And in terms of how to make a trade, don't just throw a trade package together and then send the request through without some dialogue. Check in. Hey, mate, would you consider? Is there a world where these particular plays that you're interested in would be available? Is there an appetite for trading X player? Ask those questions and then find out how desperate they are. You might be giving away too much, or you might be insulting their intelligence by trying to get a swift one by them. But start with those questions. That's how things evolve. Keep your finger on the pulse. Keep an eye on injury reports. Don't make don't make rash decisions, but make bold decisions and make sure you stick to it. As always, stay patient. Talk soon. Bye for now.